Hey guys, welcome back to the Division 3 Volleyball Fan Podcast here. I am Tay, back with the Division 3 Diaries page on Instagram. I am joined by the lovely Kori Meissner. Is that how you say it?
Yes, that's how it said.
Perfect. She's a libero at St. Lawrence University. We're going to kind of talk about her life as a student athlete, why she chose St. Lawrence, and some other stuff along the way. But Kori, why don't you give yourself a quick introduction, kind of tell the audience about yourself, your volleyball history, anything you want to include.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kori Meissner. I'm at St. Lawrence. I'm a sophomore. My major is declared in digital media and film and environmental studies. So crazy, double. And then I'm from Western Massachusetts, and my little bit about my volleyball history. I've been playing since, let's see, eighth grade now. So, and then I played club all the way from, I want to say, freshman year until senior year. I played at a few different clubs, and now I'm here at St. Lawrence.
I mean, that's kind of the same thing with me in terms of start date. But kind of want to go back to what you said. You're from Western Mass. I see, like on your St. Lawrence page, it said you're from Williamstown. I actually grew up in that area. My grandparents live in North Adams.
No way.
So I guess the first question of the interview is, how does a girl from Williamstown, Mass, end up at St. Lawrence? I know that's about like a 4.5, 5 hour trip. So I guess like what stood out to you about St. Lawrence? Because obviously, like in that area, you have Williams, you have MCLA, and what made you decide to also go out of state rather than staying in the state of Mass?
Yeah, so originally I'm from Connecticut, so a little bit even further than Massachusetts, just from St. Lawrence. And then my parents both work at Williams College. So we were in the transition from moving states. And my brother went to Syracuse University, so kind of familiar with this upstate area. My brother, he definitely knew exactly what he was going into for his major, and I kind of followed a similar path. I was very intent on starting my digital media film, getting into that realm. So when I did my official visit at St. Lawrence, I kind of just had my host showed me around, and I felt like I could understand what it was like to be a student here. So it was really awesome to see because the digital media film program is only 2 years old now, and technically I'm only 2 years old here. So it's kind of nice to grow with the program, and especially since I was so invested in starting my academic journey like right away. That was like a really good, I guess, collaboration for me as well. And it also let me um what's the best word? Build both sides of my academic field since I'm in the arts and a little bit of the sciences. And even when I toured, I sat in on two different classes. So I sat in on a bio lecture, which is one of the largest lectures that St. Lawrence has, and then I sat in on a smaller class lecture. And during my visit, the students and the teachers, it was almost as if I was in the class, as if I was a student. So that was another thing that really drew me in to St. Lawrence, even being so far away. And it's a nice distance. 4 hours isn't too bad.
It could be further. I don't understand. Like, I have a couple friends at Sage who are from like Cali, the Cali area, and I could not imagine being that far from home. But that kind of leads into my next question with like kind of the academic version, I guess, point of St. Lawrence, because I mean, obviously you mentioned you're a double major. So like at St. Lawrence, is it really hard to like balance your academics with your athletics, especially being a double major?
I wouldn't use the word difficult. I think balancing classes and volleyball really allows me to understand myself more. It's really, you can kind of choose what path you want to go down. So you can kind of learn like when you like to do homework, if you like to do it before practice or after practice. Like I have some teammates that like to do it in the morning. So it kind of really just allowed me to find the balance that works for me. Like I schedule in season, I'll schedule my classes so that I'm hitting my major requirements. I'm still taking classes that I'm interested in, but I'll look more towards the ones that end around 1 p.m. so that I have time to do homework before practice, or if I need to go to the athletic trainer or anything like that before practice. And I really love that about the schedule because the latest class we'll go here is 4 o'clock. So if you wanted to schedule all the like right now in the spring semester, since we have a little bit on to balancing classes and volleyball at school, it's really flexible. And since I can kind of curate my schedule to what best fits my personality, I just really like that balance. Definitely now I've established a cycle of classes that I like. I'm more of like I have classes at 9 and then I end around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's kind of the cycle that I'm falling into, which is pretty nice for me.
No, I definitely like that cycle too. I'm definitely a morning person. But I guess kind of getting into like more volleyball stuff. I mean, obviously the team goes back a little earlier, so you don't have like major conflict with your first games. But I'm assuming your guys' first games was the Morrisville tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So I believe that
Yeah, that
was
was
you guys, Morrisville, Cobleskill, Sage, Polly, Alfred. I think those were the six. I don't know if there's a seventh in there I'm missing. But I do remember being at the tournament. Unfortunately, we didn't play St. Lawrence with Sage, but kind of reflect on that like Morrisville tournament. I mean, obviously the competition there was great. Alfred had just won, one of the hardest conferences in the Empire 8. You got Morrisville was there with Emily Huppy, who's obviously year in and year out one of the best hitters in the nation. So just competition wise, like, and just going right into it, like you're diving right into this tournament. How did that like gear you up for the season and like prepare you?
Yeah, like you mentioned, there was really good competition there. We didn't see everyone, but I think that that tournament was a really good start to the year. Even though we walked out of the tournament with one win and two losses, I think all three games were 4 sets and even 5 sets. So I think that really showed us what it was going to take. Um, it really showed us that like reconnecting and all of those good opportunities. Oop, my Zoom is falling apart.
Don't worry about it. Take as much time as you need.
So yeah, I think it really gave us an opportunity to see all of the other competition and really get back into that feeling, especially since it's not on our home court advantage. I think it's a really good way to start the season.
I mean, that's a wonderful answer. You love to hear that about the beginning of the season. I like that you do mention, regardless of outcome, how you felt. But kind of going off of that, like, I mean, obviously the first week or two of the season kind of gears you up for the rest of it. So how did your year two compare to your year one? Obviously, I believe you were the Libero last year as well, I assume. Um,
Yeah.
so like obviously it's like that's not a major difference where you're going from, maybe being a serving sub to liberoing full time. But how did year one compare to year two? Just confidence wise, energy wise, for yourself, for your team, any way you
Yeah,
want to interpret it.
I think that's a really good question. In my first year, I was definitely focused on like the fundamentals of where I was and understanding like systems, plays, my other teammates, kind of just how I could implement my skills to better the team as a whole. So I would say that going to the second year, now having those plays in my toolbox, I could focus more on strengthening my volleyball connections with my teammates, but then I also had a better grasp of like our team style of play and like that comfortability, definitely, and that confidence with teammates could be up one more notch, kind of being like, hey, like let's try this, or like how's this feeling, stuff like that. So I think more on like you could have more time for me to focus on like maybe skills that I wasn't giving all of my attention to, because in the first year I was more focused on dynamics and things like that. And then physically, I definitely felt stronger and more conditioned, which allowed me to perform with more consistency. And I definitely saw that this year with my serve. I would say that I took more of an attack serve approach, and I think the weight room definitely benefited for that. And then I would also say that in year one, you're seeing a series of teams that you're meeting for the first time, and they're meeting you for the first time. And then by year two, you have an idea of other players and like the strategy that they might be bringing into the game, which is a really cool aspect going into year two.
I mean, I love the answer, especially about your serve. I mean, the serve obviously was good year one, but it's very hard to find a consistent one-to-one server and perfect one-to-one. But that service kind of leads into my next question because I love the serve and pass game. The game is won in serve and pass. So just in your gym or an opponent you face where you just obviously excluding yourself because your serve is incredible. excluding yourself, like someone in your gym that just has an insane serve that you go back into serve receive and you see them, warming up their serve and you're like, oh goodness, here we go. Because we had a couple of those in the stage gym where it's just you would go into receive and you'd be like, oh geez.
Yeah, I think we have some really good servers in the gym and we have a really good variety from topspin to float. But I would definitely give this shout out to our freshman Bridget. She has a really tough float ball. And she's also the newest serve that I've seen in our gym. Because obviously I've had time to be with my other teammates and kind of when I see them step up in a scrimmage in practice or like in serve receive, it's kind of like, you know, it's coming, it's going to be a really good serve, but you're also like, you're ready for it. It's that nice, friendly, like, yeah, serve the ball right here. And so definitely Bridget's serve is pretty new to me. And it's one of those floats that if I try to midline that, that ball's gone. That ball beat me if I try to midline that one. So I would say her serve really pushes me to go beyond my comfort zone. And I think it's nice to remember that like my skills are still evolving in that department.
Growth mindset. You gotta love that from someone. Very, very rare these days. But kind of going off the, I guess, competition level, obviously talking about the serve, it's going to be a little bit different than the serve, but how is competing in the Liberty League? So I started with Bard and I was on the women's staff, so I got to see a little bit of Liberty League, but obviously like the Liberty League is one of the top conferences in the nation in terms of competition with William Smith. Ithaca RIT just had a massive turnaround. Union's always competitive. So like just in general, like how is the Liberty League like when you're facing like I guess versus out of conference competition, non-con competition, compared to the Liberty League, like in play when you're looking at it, the out from the outside looking in, I should say, how is just the competition of the Liberty League, and how do you think that's shaped you up as a better player?
Yeah, I that's also a really good question. I think the Liberty League is really competitive. There's a lot of movement amongst our ranking system, I would say. Like you said, we have like Ithaca and William Smith. They've been in the 1 and 2. William Smith is a younger program. They're, I wouldn't say brand new, but they recently just started their program and like they're doing very well for being a new program. And I would say like the RITs, the unions, like St. Lawrence, all of us in the middle this past year. Um, it's very flexible year to year, I would say. Like our league isn't like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way down is like, oh, they're gonna be here, 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 and here. And I think that's a really nice thing, is that competition is always flowing and growing. Like everyone's bringing in new players. Maybe you aren't bringing in a big class that year, but either way, you know that a Liberty League match is going to be it's going to be a good one. And even outside of Liberty League, I would say like we all go in with the same mentality because sometimes our schedules will be non-Liberty League first and then Liberty League. So it's kind of like you're always trying to keep your mentality going before you get to those Liberty League matches. But I would say overall, it's a really good conference.
I mean, like you said about William Smith, what they've done in what like 3 or 4 years of a program, absolutely incredible. So got to give them their flowers. But kind of talking about like matchups and like games, what was like one win, loss, doesn't matter what happened in the game, whether you had 0 reception errors, 10 reception errors, like regardless of all of that, what's one match that you just constantly feel yourself going back and wanting to watch again, watching again, thinking about just in general, from
Yeah.
either this year, last year, just any moment in your high school career, either club career, like what's one match that you were just like, wow, like I can't stop watching this.
Yeah, I think I have two matches that I go back to. Back in high school, I would say my senior year championship game. We didn't win, but I would say that we challenged. Of course, the last set was one of those like point for point matches. And me and my team, we put it all out there. And I would say going back to that, even though we didn't win the championship, watching that group of girls is it's just like really, I guess the word I would use is empowering, like how much we put into it. And even though we didn't get that like number one or like that number one feeling, like how much work we had put into that season. We ended that season 19 and 2. So even though we had gone so far, like such a good record, and then we put that two on the end of the record, it was like, yeah, but like we also walked away remembering that someone had to lose that day. Like it was a good game and it happened, but watching that game, definitely I'll go back to it, and it was a good moment, even though the end result wasn't coming out with the win. And then I would say in college, right now, I would say this past season, my favorite match to rewatch or reflect on would be Ithaca. We did leave that game 0-3 on sets, but I would say overall it's a really fast-paced game, and you get to learn like what's on and what's off, and how fast you can really adapt to each and every game, especially in that game. Like for me myself, I definitely like that's when I know how I'm gonna adapt on my serve receive. Like if I'm on that day, if I'm off that day. And like we mentioned before, even though they're on the top of the Liberty League, it's not like we're walking into the game being like, oh, like top of the Liberty League. It's almost like this grit of like, oh, this is really good competition. And like, no matter what, you're exposed to more volleyball and different kinds of players. So I think I could confidently say that I learned a lot about myself and my teammates in that game. And I like to reflect on it, even though it wasn't a win.
I mean, like I said earlier, growth mindset. You gotta love it. I mean, going into those type of games, knowing that they know they should win the game, but you also know they think they should win the game. It's a great feeling, especially when you even if you might not win the set, but you go on like a 4-0 run. Absolutely incredible. Just from the short time talking to you, I can obviously tell you and your team are very humble people. You're very like, okay, well, I messed up. Well, I can do better this next time. I'm gonna better the next ball, etc. But break down that humbleness for a second and talk about a game from this past season where you just felt like you played perfect. Like you felt you couldn't have played any better. Win or loss, like obviously everyone's got that. Oh well, I might have played perfect, but I can play even more perfect. But like, what's one game that you were just like you sat down on the bus, on the bench after, and you were like, wow, like I've never played that well this season or something like that.
Yeah, if I'm looking back, I would say I actually have two games that were pretty similar for me in that feeling. We played, I might be pronouncing this wrong, but Rutgers, Newark, and then Cuca. Both were pretty similar games for that like feeling. Um, Rutgers, Newark, we didn't leave with a win, but I ended up setting my second highest pass rating. And then at Cuca, I did set my personal highest pass rating. I ended up being at around a 2.4. So that was a pretty good feeling for me. Um, as much as like stats don't define you, I love having a benchmark to look back at. So it was a good moment. And then definitely Rutgers, Newark, I remember my teammates also having some very solid plays, and very specifically my teammate Ada, who I've been playing with since my last year of club. So a little advantage. I got to know her for a year before we came here. She had some beautiful swings from the middle, and she ended up recording 25 kills that game, which was her personal number. She was hitting about like a 300, and just having that connection, I guess, as much as I was feeling like my pass rating was like I was passing well and I was communicating well with my teammates, I think I would also say that when that other connections, like I was connecting with my setter and she was connecting with the hitters. So even though it kind of was me feeling perfect, it's also that feeling of your teammates around you are also having that moment. So I definitely look back on that one.
I mean, 25 kills is an insane threshold. But I mean, you got to have your flowers too. I mean, the play starts with the pass. But I mean, even in that answer, you were so humble. I mean, as a coach, I mean, your coaches have to love you. But I mean, I'm out of questions. If there's anything else you want to talk about before we finish up here, I want to mention anything.
I don't think I have anything to add.
Oh, well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for, taking the time out of your day for this interview. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot about player mentality, I should say. Um, so I hope you continue to do, obviously I'll be tracking this entire season. I'm gonna have a lot of work to do in the fall, but continue to do what you're doing. I mean, right now you're chasing that 100 aces, which I mean you'll get, you'll get it, which is an incredible feat. So good luck to you on that. And I mean, have a great rest of your night. And once again, thank you so much for joining.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.